Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and today I get to talk to you in another Real Talk episode. I'm excited to show up more this season. I have said it at the beginning of the season, and so here I am again to have a conversation about careers. So get ready. It's been a very impactful year. I'm not sure that I've said it on the podcast, but I lost my mom last month, and losing someone at the core of your being is difficult, to say the least. Difficult and impactful to your career because it gives you pause for reflection and thinking about how you handle dealing with grief and still functioning in your career and still setting yourself up for success. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, how to be your authentic self despite life's impactful moments that give you great pause. And it's important for me to talk about this because I can't tell my clients to show up as their authentic selves and not show up as my authentic self. So I've got a couple topics to talk to you about today. That's one of them, navigating spaces when you carry heaviness with you. And also, I want to talk about staying in a learning zone and learning as much as you can to soar ahead in your career or to differentiate yourself in your career. And I'll tell you about my latest certificate that I've gotten and talk about plans for the year. We are recording the podcast continuously. I must admit that I've thought about a couple times, should I continue doing the podcast? I say that because there's been so many things that I have been doing, and the podcast is one of them. I greatly enjoy hearing about other people's stories, how they get to the driver's seat, what their leadership journey has been like, and what is their formula for owning their careers, and basically imparting career wisdom to you and to me as well, listeners, because I want to tell you that I'm always learning. When I am interviewing the guests, I lean into curiosity and ask questions that I think that you might want to know as well. So we continue to record, and I will definitely let you know about the future of the podcast. For now, we move forward. We are in season 12, and careers is a hot topic. Thank you for your response to the Real Talk that I did talking about career confidence, because that's a hot topic. And I still, just this week, I heard somebody else mention confidence in the career, dealing with that. And so that's something that stays with us. I think a lot of people are challenged by being confident and continuing to show up confidently. It does take work. Let me say it takes work to show up confidently. And even to those people who appear seasoned, and it takes work. You got to put in the work. I always go back to what Malcolm Gladwell said in the book, The Outliers, how he talks about to hone your craft, you've got to put 10,000 hours in. And I believe you've got to do that. I've been putting a lot of hours in from a career coaching standpoint. I work with a lot of coaching clients. That's picked up significantly this year. And I do a lot of work around consulting and training work around creating an inclusive workplace. So I say that to say I notice the difference of moving towards those 10,000 hours, because you could tell that you're getting better in your craft based on the number of intentional hours you put into honing your craft. So I want to say that to you if you are in a job where you're doing your job, and you must notice that you're getting better through on the job experience, but there should also be a space for education, consistent education to grow in your career. So let me go to education for a moment, because I started talking about education and I am popping around a little bit, but bear with me. So education, I recently got a certificate. I literally just got the email today. I took 6 courses on artificial intelligence because I've just been curious about how do I layer that on top of the work that I do. And I think in your career, you need to think about how do you remain on top of your craft? How do you stay in tune with trends? And AI is everywhere. So if you try to avoid it, you could be a late adopter. I kind of consider myself a late adopter because it was out many, many years ago. And I remember talking to a colleague, Joe Santana, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been working with AI for a while," and I was so proud that I was about to embark on this Cornell certificate course. So I say that to say, be sure to be aware, notice what's happening around you. What are the hot topics? What are the industry concepts that you may not have a good grasp on, that you need to put yourself into spaces that rub against the road and cause a little bit of discomfort, and it is fuel for transformative growth. So I want you to think about that and to really get in tune with education. And so for me, that one of those things that I committed to doing at the end of last year was getting AI education. So I did 6 courses at Cornell. I did them all online and got a certificate in AI strategy, which now I've got to take the new knowledge and implement it and learn from it. And I don't profess to be an expert, because just because you get training doesn't mean you're an expert, but it is a start in the right direction. And so I want to encourage you in your career to invest in yourself, invest in your development. Don't wait for managers to tell you this is where you need to build more capability. Don't wait for your performance review to hear feedback that you need to get stronger in certain areas. Be self-aware, do your own assessment of your capabilities, think about your future and where you want to go, think about the capabilities you have, what are you lacking, what do you have but you want it to be stronger, and then double down on that. Be intentional about educating yourself. There are online opportunities for you to boost your education. Today, I was on a workforce development call and just learning about workforce challenges in my state. And I found it very informative. One of the things they said in there was like real estate is a uh, high performing, like there's a lot of interest in real estate. And if that's your thing, it's a good thing to go after. But I found it very insightful and informative, and just I'm still thinking about the meeting even after it. And also, community colleges were discussed. That's an opportunity. So if you don't have a lot of tuition dollars or professional development dollars, take a look at your local community college and what they're offering. Take a look online at things like Coursera. What are the courses that are being offered? And I'm seeing an awful lot of complimentary courses offered. So it's really up to you to carve out the time and take advantage and just continue to pour into yourself. Trust and believe that it's going to pay off. That knowledge is going to pay off. If it doesn't pay off immediately, that's okay. I consider it to be seeds that will continue to bloom. So go ahead and pour and pour and pour into yourself. In my mind, being in the driver's seat is about betting on yourself, betting strongly on yourself, having a strong mindset and belief in your capabilities. So be sure to invest in additional professional development. On our website, we do have this template that you can download to help with your professional development planning. And I do believe in planning for professional development. In fact, I'm looking at that on a regular basis. Like, what am I learning? What am I learning? You should be saying to yourself at the start of a new year and even throughout the year, what am I learning? What do I want to learn? So education is one of those things that I am very passionate about and will continue to be passionate about. And I encourage you to do the same in terms of owning your career. The other thing I wanted to talk to you is navigating hard things in your career. And so for me, my hard in 2024, and it's actually been hard for a while, but it all came to a uh, uh yeah, it all came together or not together. It all challenged me greatly when my mom passed away in February 2024. And that is something that is transformative. In the work that I do, I talk a lot about transformative growth, how to transform as a leader. I want to mention to you that transformation is not always easy. And so at this particular junction, I know that my mom's passing is a transformative moment for me where I can't help but be different as a result of this experience. I do know deeply in my heart that my mom instilled in me values that I hold dear, to show up and to do my best and to create opportunity for others, to be loving to family. And I want to continue to do that. And so I'm challenging myself to show up. So I am doing a little bit more networking. And networking is one of those things that has always been a challenge for me. There's relationship building that is necessary. And listeners, if you're not doing that in your career, you do yourself a great disservice, because networking is important. If you're an introvert like me, it's not always fun, but it's necessary and it's intentional. And I do believe that the more you do it, um, the more you will build skill and build capability in that area. So get out there, do some networking. I did get an opportunity to go and listen to talk show host and journalist Tamron Hall last week. I went and learned about her new book and her story, and so much inspiration. And you can look at these networking events, or I'm going to start calling them relationship building events or events of interest. I like that language. Events of interest. I am following my interest. And now at this transformational moment in my life, it's a moment of discovery. So what will I allow myself to discover? And I want you to think about your career in the driver's seat. What are you giving yourself permission to discover at this moment in service of owning your career? And for me, it's a curiosity about learning about other people's stories. I'm noticing that I'm reading a lot of biographies to learn about their stories and their journeys, which goes in line with this podcast. It goes in line with the podcast and really being interested in people's stories. And this may go somewhere else. These are seeds. I believe that everything we do in our careers, there are seeds that are planted, and that it is a matter of time before those seeds bloom in the way that we want them to bloom. That said, I encourage you to go out and in this season for Simone, in this transformative season for Simone, there is going to be fuel or planting of seeds pouring into me so that I can reflect on what I'm receiving, the content that I'm receiving. And I will do a bit more of that and show up even in the difficult times. Show up. I promise myself to show up. But I also think it's important that if you have stuff that travels with you, that you have mental support to process and digest the hurt, I say that because I remember having hurt with me for work that I did in the corporate ecosystem, corporate America. I had some hurt and disappointment with me that traveled with me for a while, and I needed to address it. So I will say that taking care of your mental health is important. And I realize at this transformational moment for me, taking care of my mental health is an important priority as well. So I invest in that so that I can continue to show up and carry my mom's legacy forward and do the work that I was put on this earth to do and create a legacy for my family, lead by example, all those things that I want to do. So mental health is another tip for you. I have gone around and around today. That's because I have a lot of things on my mind. So just to share where I have gone, let me take a pause and just share where I have gone. One of the messages that I gave to you is that show up for those transformational moments and get support if you need it for the transformational moments in your life. You're going to be challenged with hard things that don't just go away overnight. My mom's passing doesn't go away because we had a funeral or a celebration of life. It's going to stay with me my entire life, I think. But I will learn and I will allow myself the opportunity to discover, explore, and grow as a result of this experience. And I know there will be good days and I know there will be challenging days. And I am blessed and lucky to have people who love on me and support me and send me a kind word. I appreciate those people who have sent me a kind word in email or on social media, even strangers I don't know. So I thank you for the people doing things like that, showing their kindness. So we talked about allowing space for transformation. Allow space in your career for transformative moments, and they're not always going to be easy. They're not always going to be things that you welcome, but there are things that you have to go through to transform to the next level in your career. So keep that in mind. We also talked about education and being at the forefront in your industry. Whatever you're passionate about, seek to learn more, seek opportunities to gain that education. Don't be constrained by budget, a small budget. Try to think innovatively of how do I make this happen as opposed to I can't make this happen because I don't have the funding. And listen, I've done that. I've done that myself, fixated on not having resources to do things. But I will say that it comes with maturity where you're thinking shifts and you realize that you've got to invest in fueling yourself and fueling your growth to get to the next level. So education, lifelong learning, that is something to pay attention to. We also talked in this episode about relationship building or embracing events of interest. It sounds so fancy. Events of interest. Yes, I like it. So move towards your events of interest or people of interest. There are some people who will attract you based on their knowledge, based on how they carry themselves, and you're drawn to them. You just want to get to know them and learn from them. And I say that because I'm remembering going to see Tamron Hall at the library. That was awesome. She was so authentic. Her leadership style, her content, her journey that she shared was very insightful and impactful for me. And clearly, other people in the audience thought that too, because it was a sold out event. And now I want to go see the show. Anyway, yeah, look for those people who have something to pour into you and be willing to receive it. Be willing to receive it, receive the message, and realize that there are seeds being planted, and you're not always the one planting the seed. There are other people who plant seeds that will blossom for you, but you can be a part of the process and you can take ownership and intentionally plant your own seeds. That's what I'm wishing for you this year, for your future as well. I will tell you, if you have any questions that you want me to answer in our Real Talk episodes, please reach out to us. You can email me at POOYC. That's the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the acronym initials, POOYC at SimoneMorris.com. I almost forgot about that email address until I got an email recently from someone who sent it to that. So you can send an email to that address and I will get your message. If you have a question or if you have a guest recommendation that you want me to interview on the show, we also on the website, you can sign up to be a guest on the show. I always get emails about people asking me how to be a guest. We do have it on our website. So if you go to the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website and you click on podcasts, you'll be able to go to the show and then click the link to be a guest. You can listen to the show wherever you listen to podcasts at pod.link/ownyourcareer. pod.link/ownyourcareer. At that website, you'll get so many links where the podcast is. I just saw the other day, we're on Audible. I don't know how I forgot that. So if you have Audible, you can look for the show on Audible as well. We're out there. We've been at this for 12 seasons, and I'm proud of the work that we continue to do. We've got some exciting interviews coming up. We have done some features for Women's History Month for the occasion, to celebrate the occasion by re-releasing a couple episodes that are impactful. I hope that you continue to listen to the show, and I hope that you continue to be in the driver's seat for your career. I love that I talked to a guest in the past, and they reminded me that being a passenger is not always a bad thing, and I agree. There are times when we're going to be passengers in our career, but the idea is to not stay as a passenger for an elongated period of time where you just take your hands off your career and you're not intentional about the outcomes. So I want you to be involved in your career so that you can know that your career body of work includes you and not just what other people want for you. So keep your hand on the wheel. Keep your hand on the wheel. Even if you don't have it all figured out right now, take some time to reflect and think about how you want to level up in your career and what you want, what's next for you, your next chapter in your career, and take action. Take action to make that happen. Well, that's it for today. We will be back with another new episode next week. And I look forward to continuing to grow with you and sharing with you and showing up as my authentic self on this podcast and in spaces that I navigate as well. I encourage you to do the same. It is not always easy, but you do yourself a disservice if you retreat and you don't show up for yourself and show up for your career. This is Simone Morris signing off for the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Have a great week, everybody. And don't forget to come and visit us on LinkedIn. We've got a group for the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. More to come, more to come. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Bye for now. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at POOYC@SimoneMorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.